Hey, I want to thank you for being a guest here at CALMClass.com. This website is dedicated to one thing: to be able to give you a different mindset. To be able to stay calm in tough times is by changing how you think, because when you change how you think, it changes how you live. My name's Dwight Bain. I'll be your host through most of these lessons, but I'm really glad that you found us. I'm really glad that you're taking time out to watch a lesson that will be life-changing. So do this. Take good notes. Download the study guides. Let these life application principles make your life a better place. And then would you let us know how this is helping you? My thanks to you for watching. My thanks to our incredible team for making it happen. But most of all, my thanks to God, because He gives us principles that will change our life if we use them. Are you ready? Let's get started. Let us pray. Lord, thank you for these friends and those that join us at CALMClass.com. Thank you for technology, that even when we're heading in different directions, because of podcasts, because of webinars, because of internet platforms, we can stay connected to each other, and that is wonderful. Life is about community, and life is about growing. And so, God, I pray that you would use this lesson to change hearts, but most of all, God, use it to change mine. And we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. So today I'm going to be talking to you about this whole issue of developing your soul. Now, the soul is a word that gets thrown around a lot, but I don't know that anybody really pays attention to what it is or what it means. All right, so here's your standard. This is an oven basic, tested, warranted measuring cup, 1 cup, right? And understanding your soul is understanding that you have capacity. You have the ability to do more than you thought. And the wonderful thing is that God designed us and God developed us with a soul. But if you don't do your part, you see, God gives the capacity. All right, so here's capacity. God gives the capacity for me to learn and grow. But what if all I do is I say, I'm going to accept Jesus as my Savior, and I'm done? Well, you're never going to reach your capacity. That's just a little bit. Just a little bit. Oh, there it is. It's water. Calm down. I want you to reach your full capacity. And you cannot do that if you don't know, one, what a soul is, and if you don't know how to develop it. Now, I can tell you, developing your soul, not easy. And usually it involves a lot of hard circumstances. Now, I don't know anybody that likes hard circumstances, but throughout the Bible, it's amazing. God uses hard circumstances to grow us. In fact, if you're not going through a hard circumstance, it's very possible there's nothing going in. God gives us capacity. There's a wonderful story of a man. You may not know this about him, but his mom was a Jehovah's Witness. And it's interesting because he joined the army. He was one of 5 brothers, and all of his brothers said the only time they ever remembered their mom crying, weeping, this included the death of their dad. The only time they remembered their mom ever even showing any emotion and crying was when he joined the army. And she was weeping, and she said, I'm a pacifist. I don't believe in war. But if that's what you think you want to do, you're my son, and I will support you. And she did, weeping. As he got on the train, got an appointment to go to West Point, graduated from West Point number 123 out of 165. Would you say that's impressive, Patrick? 123 out of 165?
He graduated.
He graduated. Yeah, that's how you look at it. He's in the 1/3 of the class that made the top 2/3 possible. It's like, yeah. He wanted to be involved in the war to end all wars, WW1. And because he had trained at West Point, had an opportunity to go in as a young officer to World War I, he was commissioned to leave to get to France on November the 18th. Because, if you know the Department of Defense and military, those plans are frequently months ahead of time. If you know your history, you know World War I ended on November 11, Armistice Day. He missed WW, and he would not have anything significant happen in his life for 20 years. He would not have another promotion for 20 years. Now, I think it'd be easy to say you can get frustrated if your life is just not really doing a whole lot for 20 years. But see, this man, and remember, he had 4 brothers. In his 40s, every one of his brothers had passed his career. Even his mom said, "Do you think you're going to leave the army and maybe do something else after he got to 20 years?" He said, "No, this is what I know." Get this. He even had a job being the personal assistant, secretary, to a general who he described as an egomaniac from his biography. He said, "My boss is a fool. He is a pitiful little baby who thinks that he is God." Anybody ever have a boss like that? Don't raise your hands if you work for me. Okay. Wait. No, John, here's how you say it. Don't raise your hand if you used to work for me. I mean, that's how it works. That's how it works. So for 20 years, he's working for officers, and if you've been around the Army, you know that there are some officers. But for 8 years, he works for this guy, a famous guy. He writes all of his memos, cleans up all of his mistakes, and then writes many things that his boss took credit for. Can you imagine? 8 years. Tried to quit twice. Boss wouldn't let him because he said, "You make me look good." And in those 8 years, out of 20 of nothing really happening in his career, here's what was happening. Here it goes. He was pouring into his own life. He did have one boss, a fellow named Fox Connor, at a place he was positioned in Panama. And he worked for Fox for 2 years, and Fox mentored him. In fact, he said, "This man is closer than a brother. This man helped me to see. This man poured his life into mine." All right, so we're talking about developing your soul. 20 years, no promotion. 20 years, mostly bad bosses. 20 years of getting ready. Now, his bad boss, the one he said was a fool, he was stationed in the Philippines. His boss was General Douglas MacArthur. Ever heard of him? The man I'm talking about is another fellow. His name's Dwight D. Eisenhower. Ever heard of Ike?
Yeah.
Ike, for 20 years, had nothing good happening. But get this, because he learned to learn, and he learned to journal. He would take the rage that he felt of a boss busting his chops and go and journal it instead of blowing, because you can't blow up at your boss. If you do, then that must be your former boss. That is how it works. But he would journal, and he would check books out of the library of the great battles. Not just WW1, but every great battle. And he had a chalkboard, and he turned the screen room of his army barracks, drove the other guys in the barracks crazy. He turned the screen room, Pat, you'll love this, he turned the screen room into a battle plan room with chalkboards, and he would replay every great battle throughout history. Civil War, great battles in Europe, and he would replay it on this chalkboard of, you know what, here's a better way to do it. And in those 20 years, nobody else could see it, but things were pouring into his life. And because he was a secretary, because he was an officer, but a junior officer, which means secretary, gopher. Nobody was pouring into his life except for one boss. But he found a way through personal development and reading and learning and studying to pour things in. And he was best known for something called logistics. He was best known for little details. Remember, he was a secretary, an office manager. And guess what armies need lots of? Little details. Armies need lots of little details. Do we have enough gasoline? to be able to move the tanks forward? Do we have enough bullets? Do we have enough landing craft? And it was interesting in a biography about Eisenhower that my dad and I were listening to. It's an audio book. Really interesting stuff. The most famous memo that was never sent in June of that year, he wrote a memo before D-Day. Because if D-Day didn't work, his memo to the media, to the press, I made the decision as the commanding officer. I made the decision for the landing craft, and I had the best information possible. I thought it would work. It didn't. All responsibility rests on me. Wow. If you know your history, you know D-Day did work, but he was already, because he was a detail guy. Why? Because he learned how to fill things up. And for many of us, we don't have anything in our soul. It doesn't come automatic. God gives you capacity. You get the container automatic. God has potential for you. Turn to somebody next to you and say, God has potential for you. God has potential for you.
Hey,
God has potential for you. I realize that some of you are sitting next to people you're related to, and you had to say that with, like, you know, God has potential. Because you don't, maybe you can't see it, but other people, like the people sitting on the other side of the table, they can say, oh, God has potential for you. One of the interesting things, you know, I mean, sometimes at different stages of life, we see things differently. Pat, I think this is a true story. Old guy was out fishing, 85 years old, just fishing by himself, comes across a talking frog. And the frog says, oh, kind sir, please rescue me. Little frog stands up, puts her little hands together and says, kind sir, please rescue me. I am a beautiful princess. I had a curse placed on me by a wicked witch. And if you will just take me and kiss me, I will be your loving, loving, beautiful princess the rest of your life. And the old man says, really? Reaches down, picks up the frog, puts her in his pocket. And the frog said, didn't you hear what I said? He said, yeah, but listen, at my age, I'd rather have a talking frog. It's a true story. True story. Yes, it happened. All right. When you take a look at the majority of people, how come they don't reach their capacity? The majority of people never experience lasting success or significance because they continually struggle with internal weakness. Now, I'm not going to spill that much, but if I dump all this out, and a continual weakness is we maybe learn a little bit, and then we dump it out. We turn, and then something happens. Then we get mad. Then we blow up. All right, now, if it empties, there's not a problem. God will give you an unlimited capacity, unlimited supply. I just have to go and pour it in. So as you take a look at this, Dallas Willard was a theologian, wonderful thinker, taught at the University of Southern California in the fields of religion and philosophy. Dallas said, if your soul is healthy, no external circumstance can destroy your life. If your soul is unhealthy, no external circumstance can redeem it. And so we're talking about matters of the soul. Let's dig in. When you develop internal strength, you are becoming who God designed you to be. You can only do this by developing your soul. All right, so here's the principle. You have a body. This body will fail and age. You are a soul. You have a body, but you are a soul. Your soul will live forever somewhere. Your soul will either live in heaven with the Lord, as God designed and intended, but you have to make a choice, or your soul will end up in hell. Those are the only two places. Your body will fail. Your body will die. But your soul will live forever. So let's talk about how to develop it. So you take a look at this. The soul care only occurs when you stop the noise so that you can truly hear the word of the Lord. And to stop the noise is hard to do. The research says now the average American spends a little over 4 hours a day with television or radio, but mostly TV. That's from the AC Nielsen Company. The groups that study the internet show that the average American now spending almost 2 hours a day with the internet or social media. All right, so about 6 hours of every day, people are pouring stuff in. It's just not good stuff. They're pouring things into their soul, but it's not feeding their soul. because it's temporary. For instance, does it really matter what your favorite celebrity had for breakfast yesterday on Instagram?
No.
If you don't know what Instagram is, it's a media thing, and you can take these beautiful pictures, and it's cool, and I'm on Instagram too, but it's interesting to see how many people think it's fascinating to be able to post what they had for breakfast. Now, I guess if it was a really good breakfast, but it's still breakfast, right? So when I think about the idea of developing your soul, and by the way, I use social media every day to add value. You can tell when I'm reading this, actually you can tell what I was reading last week because I posted on social media. Quotes and stories because I want to see I'm about helping you develop your soul. Helping pour good things in. In fact, I was so happy that Dee is here. I met her friend Robin, and I'm so happy that they're here because Dee and I met through LinkedIn. Dee, hold your hand up so everybody knows who you are. Welcome, Dee. Welcome, Dee.
We also have two more visitors.
Two more visitors? Did you guys meet me through LinkedIn?
No, through me.
Oh, well, Marty's better.
Marty in.
Marty in.
Marty in.
And
Marty
we're
in.
here on vacation from Seattle.
Wow.
And
Seattle,
they're both
congratulations.
They're both teachers.
And they're both teachers. Thank you for what you do.
We needed a vacation.
Oh, and you needed a vacation.
Fill our soul.
Oh, that's right. You need to pour some things in. I love that because of these different platforms, we can meet people, and I love that there are people from different parts of the country because you're just new friends. Because we all need to be in community. Because that's what develops your soul. Finding out what your favorite celebrity did or said. By the way, there's a word for that. It's called gossip. Most people will go into a worship environment because a friend invited them. You're the exception because you and I developed a relationship many years ago on LinkedIn through social media, and to meet somebody on social media in person, virtual relationship to real relationship, that's why I was so happy to meet you. But most people get involved in community because somebody invited them. Hey, come with me. We've got this growth experience. And so this whole idea about developing your soul, that's what I'm about. I want to see you develop your soul. And as you take a look at this, you have to turn the noise off. You have to turn the noise off. Busy is a problem with the outer world, because some people say, I'm so busy. Okay, so busy is an outer world problem where there's no time to develop yourself. Look at the quote. Because our outer worlds are visible and measurable and expandable, they're easier to deal with. They demand our attention. The result is our private world. Would you underline the word private world? Would you underline those words? Because your private world, that's what we're talking about. Your private world's often cheated, neglected because it does not shout out quite so loudly. It can be effectively ignored for a large period of time before it gives way to a sinkhole-like cave-in. Gordon MacDonald, of course, a man who knows a lot about that. Because when you look at the idea, if you grew up in Florida like I did, you know that a sinkhole is when the limestone, something happens, and then it collapses. In fact, every day I drive past what was called and known as the Winter Park sinkhole, and it swallowed up Porsches and Corvettes and businesses, and it just literally, was a football field across of just this whole very exclusive part of Winter Park just collapsed and caved in, and everything went down into the ground. It collapsed suddenly. And so sometimes you'll see something happen in a person's life, or Pat, like you were talking about, where Bobby's going to church, and you think, man, what's happening? There's been something eroding. See, a sinkhole, the limestone erodes, and then it collapsed instantly. Something was eroding in that leader's life, and that's why you think, man, how did this happen? Oh, something Pastor David says a lot. All we can see is the crash. We never see the fall because that's eroding over a long period of time. Marty, you had a thought? Yeah, it's pretty interesting how sometimes, and David and I usually don't talk about, hey, here's what I'm thinking about teaching this week, but many times they will line right up. And I just think, man, that guy keeps stealing my stuff. I don't know. How am I going to stop that?
There's a guest speaker today.
David Lovelace.
David Lovelace.
From Discovery Church.
Of course I know David and Corona.
They're here today.
That's a perfect message.
Yes. I
remember when the sinkhole occurred.
Yes.
Because that's usually when I want to be the guy who's the first to call and say, how can I help you? Sinkhole? Because they've been friends for a long time.
They'll be thrilled.
And so what you're going to find is in your life, you want people who, when something happens who say, oh, how can I come pour into your life? Now, that's not original to me. It seems to be that's how I think Jesus operates. So you want to be that person, when you see somebody going through a hard time, it's amazing. Hear that they get fired, something happens, or reach out to them. And I have a principle, it's called the Tupperware principle. Great company right here in Central Florida. The Tupperware principle goes like this. You lose a loved one, somebody dies. It used to be that people would bring casserole in a Tupperware. And then they'd come back and get it in a week or two. That's when you need somebody after a funeral.
Oh, yes.
So by the time everybody's picking up their Tupperware, that's when I want to reach out to somebody. A friend of mine's mom and dad died. Great leader. His mom was a wonderful Christian. His dad started a multi-billion-dollar company, and they both died within the same year. And I knew how lonely he would be, so, it's just, okay, everybody else picked up their Tupperware, nobody else is showing up. That's about the time I want to show up. Because that's when you need somebody to speak into your soul. That's when people have come to speak into mine. So as you take a look at this, if you're too hurried, I don't have time to work on things in my life. Okay, hurried is a problem of the inner world. Now that's different than busy, where there is no time to develop your soul. One is about developing yourself. I don't have time to read. Okay, it's really simple. You get yourself a card. It's free from the Orlando Public Library, one of the best libraries in the United States. You get yourself a library card. It's how much is a library card, ladies and gentlemen?
Free.
Oh, it's free. What's your favorite price? Free. I know you like free, right? And so, yeah, free 99. Oh, that's cute. I'll use that. That's clever. Right? And so you don't have time to learn. Oh, yeah, you can get these for free. This is an audio book. It's called The Road to Character by David Brooks. Wonderful. I'm going through it for the second time because it's about character development. And I work with a lot of leaders, and this is, useful, and it's helping me. So when I'm in the car, I miss all the new pickup truck commercials on the country station because I'm never listening. Haven't bought a new, well, come to think of it, I've never bought a new pickup, period. Those pickup truck commercials don't work. Because on many radio stations now, they're playing between 9 and 22 minutes an hour of commercials. Because they got to pay the bills. I don't mind that. I just don't want to listen to commercials about new pickups or commercials about, what's happening. I don't need to know the weather report. I can look outside and know it's raining. Okay, I need an umbrella. I want every minute I'm driving to be audio learning. Every minute that I'm going along, if I'm walking on the elliptical, I'm listening to a podcast. Because if I just put it onto the TV, channel, the old, I like watching that old A-Team stuff because I know if I could have just met the A-Team, I know that they would have added me to the team. But I'm pretty sure that commander guy would have looked at me and went, nah, yeah, it's a B-Team. I wanted to be on the A-Team. And I can watch those old 1980s, Knight Rider, and I think if I could just have been in the car with David Hasselhoff, because his next series was called Baywatch, and I know I'd have been one of the studs on Baywatch. I just know if I could have met those people. But watching old TV doesn't help me. Listening to podcasts helps me. I want to pour stuff in. You know why?
Slippery little devil.
Drop a lot of stuff. You want life, yeah. No, 18. Robin, let me do this. Okay, so pouring stuff in. I want life constantly be pouring in, pouring in, pouring in. Because I know that life can cause a lot of things to leak. So as you take a look at this, why is this so important? When you have a weak soul, you'll have a weak life. When you have a weak soul, you will have a weak life. Jesus said, what good is it for someone to gain the whole world, yet to forfeit their soul? Wow. If you have a weak soul, you're going to have a weak life. You're going to have the same problems, same repetitive problems. You'll think, why do I always get so upset when the person at Starbucks spells my name wrong on the cup? And it's like, I know they did this because they're discriminating against bald people. I know this is the reason. When you get mad because somebody in the checkout line at Target has 15 items in the 10-item lane, take a pill. Calm yourself. There's more to life. But when you get so worked up and upset, you know why? People that have deep peace in their soul, they don't get upset at traffic. Matter of fact, they just don't get upset. They don't waste their energy on things that don't matter. And the reason that so many people have a weak life, keep having the same problem year after year, decade after decade, That's why I don't go to high school reunions. I went once, and I was an overachiever because my mom and dad, poured into me, work hard, and America's a great country, and you can accomplish things. And so by the time I went to the 10-year reunion, I'd accomplished some things. I was, very successful for my age bracket. 28 years old, beautiful wife, nice home on a lake, and we had nice cars, and we both had good jobs and managed to, right? So 10 years, I thought, well, because I was an underachiever unknown in high school, just a shy, quiet bookworm. So I thought by 10 years, I'd probably be at least in the middle of the pack, not, what do you mean you're on your first divorce? 10 years. So when they called, would you come to the 30, I thought, you have the wrong person because I'm not that old, right? Because we want you to speak and raise some money. And I said, I left high school a long time ago. I wish you guys well, but there's nothing left for me at high school. I want to keep growing this way. So I'm not big on reunions because it's so sad for me to see people I grew up around who did nothing with their lives except repeat the same bad marriage, the same bad job, the same bad financial mistakes, the same bad mistakes with drugs and alcohol. And it's like, don't you get bored? I mean, try something. You know what? Let's stop the alcohol. Let's go start robbing 7-Elevens. I mean, let's at least find a new problem in your life, so at least you can say, I have a new problem, instead of the same old problem. I mean, I love what Louis Grizzard, a funny guy. Louis, after his 5th divorce, and he would write books about these bad relationships, and he was just a funny guy, came to Orlando and golfed a lot, wrote for the Atlanta newspaper. And Louis said, I'm at a stage in my life, he said, I'm going to walk into a bar, I'm going to pick the prettiest girl in the place, and I'm going to say, hi, my name is Louis, and here's my money, and here you go, here's my house keys. It'll save a step, thanks. And I mean, it was funny because for some people it's like, why do you keep repeating the same mistake? Weak life. Don't get mad at them. They have a weak soul. Now, that's not God's decision. God wants you to be right up here at the top. But you have to cooperate. So as you take a look at this, there's a major difference between the word religion and spirituality. Richard Foster wrote a wonderful book called Celebrating Discipline. And he said superficiality is the curse of our age. Because too many people have confused religion with spiritual growth. Now look at the difference in your chart. See where it says religion is practices, rites, rituals. It's Sunday morning, so I have to go to church, I have to dress a certain way, act a certain way, and I'm not allowed to cuss, at least until I get out of the car in the parking lot. What is right and what is wrong is about religion. A good religious person does, fill in the blank. And then also, what is true and what is false, because religion says, here's what you're supposed to believe. All right, now would you write next to that, religion will not change your life. Religion, just next to that bubble that says religion. Religion will not change your life. All right, and it's not a fill in the blank, just because religion's just a ritual. It's just a ritual. Every religion in the world teaches the need for ritual. Spirituality teaches the need for relationship. They're not the same. So religion is about ritual. I have to do this on Sunday. I have to do this on the 5th Tuesday of the month before the end of because religion will give you a rule. Those aren't necessarily bad. They're just not going to change your life. Now, if I had to choose, and it's how the Pilgrims and the puritanical idea, it was we want lots of religion and lots of rules because they wanted to keep order in a culture. If you take religion out of a culture, there's a wonderful little video clip. In fact, I posted it on social media. A professor at Harvard, Professor Christensen, and he did a study to look at if you took all of the churches out of the United States, you would have anarchy in less than a year. You'd have anarchy that year. So even if I didn't believe in biblical things through religion, I would want religion because look at places in the world that have no religion, and what you'll see is anarchy. There's no rules. There's no respect at all. But here's what changes your life. It's not religion. Spirituality is to look at where do I find meaning, how do I feel connected, and how should I live. Spirituality is the search for meaning and true purpose in life. Spirituality, the root word from Hebrew, Latin, and Greek means wind or breath or air. Spirituality, listen to the word, flows from the Spirit, right? So when I look at the Spirit, every religion in the world, right? So every religion talks about rules and rituals, but then all of these religions, you pick one. Any religion at a certain point will shift from religious rules to you need to do a little more. All right, and so these are the 10 steps, my 10 steps, but I pulled this from, I looked at, a friend of mine is taking a class, trying to go back to school, finish her degree, and she's taking a class in world religion. And we had a great discussion the other day about what does a Buddhist believe, and what does a Hindu believe, and what does a person who is an Anglican believe, and what does a Lutheran believe, and what does a person who is practicing Islam believe, and how are these similar and how are these different? And when I saw my conversation with my friend, and she's trying to pass this class and finish her college degree, I'm so proud of her in her 50s to say, I'm going to go back to school. That's courageous. That's growth. But as we're having this conversation, I started looking at some things, and I thought, there's a lot of similarities. So I looked at major religions of the world, and I looked at the most common factors, and I put them on the list. Here we go. Stage 1. Stages of spiritual development. Trauma, shock, or life-altering event. Something happens to cause me to say, whoa, there's more going on than me. There must be something spiritual out there. Stage 2, begin to search for answers. Begin to search for answers. You're going to do that through some type of knowledge. That's stage 3. Because I'm looking for answers. And my thirst for knowledge grows. Stage 4, question your past beliefs. Because I start to realize I don't know everything. And this would be a good exercise for those of you who are married to each other. Just turn to somebody next to you, hopefully that you're married to, and say, you don't know everything. You don't know nothing. You don't know nothing. You don't know everything. It's like a t-shirt. Sheila and I were walking through this craft show that had lots of clever sayings, and I'm taking pictures because I just thought some of them were pretty funny. And one of them said, when I married Mrs. Wright, I didn't know that her first name was Always. I thought that one was pretty good. Always right. Okay. Search for knowledge. Question past beliefs. Work through your doubts. Practice journaling to express gratitude. Every major religion says you need to write down what you're thankful for. Isn't that interesting? Being able to join like-minded groups of believers. In other words, find people who are growing and say, I want to join you. I want to be part of that. Number 7, stage 7, find a master teacher or a guru to follow as a disciple. The word disciple just means learner or follower, one who learns and follows. Stage 9, live out your faith with no regret. Stage 10, the point of no return, is when you share what you have learned with others. Now remember, every major religion does that. We're Christ followers. And I identify more as a Christ follower than a Christian, because anymore Christian means you're from the United States more than it really means anything else. And I'm just a Christ follower. And so when you look at those stages, where do you think most religious people line up? You think most religious people believe it so strongly, it's like, let me tell you how this faith changed my life. Because if you've ever met a committed Jehovah's Witness, they're not shy about that. In fact, I know some people that are committed and orthodox in their religion, which some people might even call a cult, but they're real committed about it, and they're not shy. They're not embarrassed at all. If you saw, remember the movie Napoleon Dynamite? Napoleon? Yeah. Remember, the character who played Napoleon, he's Mormon, and he spent 2 years in Japan on mission right after he finished at Brigham Young, so he could talk to people about the value of his Mormon faith. Riding a bicycle, talking to people just on the streets. And you say, why would he do that? Because he believes it real strongly. When you believe it real strongly, you're not shy about saying, let me tell you how my faith changed my life. All right, so here's a question for you. How come people are afraid to talk about what they believe? They say, oh, I believe this. So how come they won't tell anybody else? Why are people scared to talk about their faith? Dee, you and Robin are new here, and sometime in our class we'll stop and we'll answer a question, because there are smarter people at the tables than there are up here, and all of us are smarter than one of us. And we learn from each other. And so it's a chance also for everybody to learn each other's names. From Washington. I've never been to Washington. I want to go to Washington. I'll come sit in your class and you can teach me. And that'd be great. Right? And so it's a chance to learn each other's names, most important, because it's a way to get connected. And then 2, to answer the question. If people say they believe it, how come they're afraid to tell people, here's what I believe? Go. Art.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
One of the things that came to mind is someone will say that for a number of different reasons. One, to fit in. Maybe they don't know what the heck they're talking about, or they might not be fully committed, and they don't understand it, and don't know how to verbalize
Okay, so it's a
what's
knowledge.
going on with that. Yeah, knowledge thing, yeah, thanks.
Nice. One thing in response to your question that came to mind was that the power of Jesus is very intimidating in our world today because he will make the difference. And there's a lot of deception out there. And it's easier to go with the easy path. We know the wide path versus the narrow. And so the power of Jesus is what's going to make the difference. We're going to need to let him do the work. And we're the ones out there loving people because that is the great command.
Amen.
Yeah. Wow, and you know what, let me dovetail on top of that. When we love people, I don't have to say a whole lot about, hey, let me tell you what I learned in my Bible study. I don't have to say that a lot if I'm living it.
That's right.
Yeah, that's powerful. Great thought. Okay, who's next? What'd you learn at your table? We say we believe all this stuff. Way in the back, Tim. We say we believe all this stuff, but we don't tell other people about it.
This is kind of hard, but I think the reality is we don't really know what we believe well enough to explain it to someone. If you haven't seen God's Not Dead, you must see that movie because it'll help you understand how to explain the difference. And when you hear his testimony and his class that he teaches to agnostic man, it's a powerful thing. But I think, honestly, when somebody says, well, what do you believe? Jesus died on the cross, he died for my sins. Great. So why do I need to have that? Because other religions tell me what to do. So do know what you are talking about. And I think that's where we get scared, myself included. It's something that takes more than a 5-second answer. Well, I don't think we just really know what we believe.
Okay.
You have to be bold, and it starts with our kids. Years ago, I had a son with autism, and I homeschooled him. And he jumped a bunch of grade levels, and they wanted to know what I did, so I brought the ABECA curriculum to some teachers. And we actually used it inside the public schools. I mean, that is totally illegal. And it was wonderful. And it was absolutely great. And the thing is, it worked. And the kids really progressed. But at the same time, they progressed in a way where they learned to read, but they also learned about God. And the curriculum is really good.
It's a great curriculum. Becca is published. Actually, it was a teacher, Becca, who said, man, you can take these principles and phonics and some structural things in Pensacola, Florida, at a small Christian college back in the 1970s. And she said, you can take this and you can teach over here. And it's helped millions of kids around the world because of your word, boldness. Because she had the boldness to say, I really believe this will help. Because that was at a time where they thought, if you teach kids phonics, it'll bore them. Instead of, no, you give them structure, they can sound out any word.
And the thing is, I didn't get paid for it, but I volunteered for a lot of years inside those classrooms, and it was very fulfilling and uplifting. And the kids, years later, they all grew up, and I would not recognize them. They'd come up behind me and hug me, and it was just like so amazing.
Yeah, but remember, you were doing it for meaning. Listen, meaning instead of money. When you do things for meaning, it touches people's lives forever.
Exactly.
We all remember the teachers who did something, the coaches, the Sunday school teachers who did something. They didn't get paid for it. They did it because they believed in it. When somebody does it because they get paid for it, we don't remember their names. Exactly. And you did it for meaning, and that's why years later they said, oh, thank you, Misty, because you made a difference. Meaning instead of money, it's a powerful principle. Yeah, it's good. All right, who else? We say we believe it, and then Alicia in the back.
I was just going to say that in my employer handbook, it specifically says you cannot talk about religion. Yeah.
Right.
But I do anyways.
No. Wait. That's a good point. Remember, if you turn, what page is those two bubbles on? Is that on page 2, 3? The two bubbles side by side? 3. What page? 3? All right, so look at those bubbles. This is an important principle. Because your employer's right. Work is not about religion. All right, but remember, religion isn't what changes your life. And so for the employer to say, we don't want you talking about your Islam faith, your Christian faith, your Jewish faith, your Mormon faith. We want you making money for our company.
My bosses are Jewish.
Yeah, right. But if I go to the other bubble, remember, religion doesn't change your life. But if I go to that other bubble about spirituality, all employers want that. They want you to be a person who's ethical and kind and true. And if I'm living out my faith, I don't have to talk about my specific religion. So that's a really important principle, because it's confusing for people. It's like, oh, man, I'm not allowed to talk about religion. I don't want you talking about religion. All right, say it with me. Stop talking about religion. Here we go. Stop talking about religion. Did you know telling somebody how to be a better Lutheran will not change their life? Or a better Mormon, or Catholic, or Baptist? That's not what's going to change your life. All right, so stop talking about religion. Say it with me. Stop talking about religion. Here we go. New one. Start talking about Jesus. Here we go. Start talking about Jesus. And in particular, how Jesus Christ changed my life. When people say, how come you're not mad? That person had 17 items in the 10-item lane. And that happens. I have a gift. It's a gift. And you're a time management expert, Ruth, so you'll appreciate this. I have a gift. I can pick the longest line at any bank, at any store. If I pick the line, if you see me, you get in my line, we're going to be there a while. And it's like, why do I always pick the longest line? And usually the little cashier will say, thank you, sir, for your patience. And I have an opportunity to talk about my faith. Because I can say, I'm not a patient person. But you know what? I'm a person of faith. And because of my faith, and I've had so many conversations at so many stores, and I think that's why God lets me pick the long line. Because I used to be really mad, because I grew up Baptist, wasn't allowed to cuss, but I was allowed to say darn it a lot. And it's like, darn it. And I get mad instead of thinking, that cashier's having a hard day. She's just doing her $8 an hour job. And I have an opportunity to say, because of my faith, young lady, that's why I'm not mad. And I'm sorry that that person treated you so badly. Because you're just doing your job, and you didn't know they couldn't read. I mean, they were illiterate, and they put 17 items in their basket, and it says right there, 10 items. I mean, I feel bad for people that are illiterate. I mean, see that man walking out? He's just a dummy. He doesn't know anything. He's probably, he was dropped on his head as a baby, or maybe, did LSD in Vietnam. I don't know, but he can't read. But we're going to have compassion for him, like I'm going to have compassion for you. And I even had one little gal at a Walmart walk around, and she said, I'm not allowed to hug you, but I wish I could. And she had tears in her eyes. She said, you have no idea what was going on in my life today. Thank you.
Aww.
Right? Religion, here's how to be a better Methodist. No. It won't change your life. It might irritate you. It won't change your life. But if I'm able to say, let me tell you about my faith, and you're not allowed to lead with that, because they're going to ask you, why are you so patient? Why are you so kind? Why are you so gentle? Why are you so loving? Why do you have so much wisdom? Oh, let me tell you. Let me tell you. Here we go. How come you're that way? Let me tell you what I pour into my life every day. And I'll just usually say I'm a person of faith. And depending on what company I'm at or corporation, sometimes I can't use the name Jesus. But I can certainly say, my faith has changed me.
I use my church a lot.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Being able to have conversations, not leading with, let me tell you how to be a better religious person. Stop that. Religion will not change your life. Start talking about what you pour into your life. And what you're going to see is changed lives, starting with yours. You know what? This is an important topic, and it's such an important topic, I don't want to rush it. We'll finish it up next week. All right? So, we'll talk next week more about the soul, and here's the deal. Here's what I want you to do all week long. Unless you're from Washington, and you can't come. You can come back, Now, if you're from Washington and you can't come back, the answer key's on the last page. So don't panic. You guys are school teachers. I know that compulsive people.
No answer key is needed.
No answer.
Not today, they're filled in.
Oh, did I print the wrong one? I printed my copy. My copy? That's funny. That's funny. All right, so here's a little life lesson. Usually takes me about 5 hours to do a lesson. This one took probably 15. I was working on it, this morning. I went to the office at 6 because there's just too big of a topic. And so when I do a lesson, I'm teaching me. I started with 50 pages of notes, and I had to trim it down to something that the copier can handle. And so 50 pages of notes is now down to about 18. And so I thought 18 is still too long. So I trimmed it down to 7, and then I take my notes, I already have the answers. I mean, they're my notes, right? And then I make another notes, it's called the student edition. And so here's why you don't stay up till 1:30 on Friday night working on a lesson, and 1:30 last night working on a lesson, and getting up at 6 o'clock, because you'll print the teacher edition. And you guys are teachers. And if you give them the teacher's edition, the only thing the students struggle with is falling asleep. I mean, it's like, I've already got the answers, I'll just go home. So I didn't know, John, that you guys already had, so this is the greatest compliment I've ever been given. You already had the answers, and you decided to stay. It's like, wow.
You weren't taking care of your soul.
I wasn't taking care of my soul. I wasn't taking care of my soul.
Positive is you were able to go deeper. See?
But,
So we can take a lot of good
and instead of, so show of hands, how many of you really do like having the answer key at the end? Okay. Show of hands, how many of you wish that it was just printed and there was no fill in the blanks and no answer key at all? All right, answer key wins. Okay. So next week we will continue our discussion about the soul. But here's your assignment. You have an assignment. Because your assignment is see what you can do this week to pour into your soul, and see what you can do this week then how God uses that to pour into other people. And we'll hear some amazing stories next week. God bless. I'll see you in a week. Hi, Dwight Bain here, and I want to tell you about CALMClass.com. The website that you came to is actually a teaching lesson that we record in Orlando, Florida every single week. You can actually come be part of the live audience. If you're in Florida, maybe you're visiting the Orlando area, come check us out. We meet at 3000 South John Young Parkway. It's on the campus of First Baptist Orlando, which is actually a pretty large place. So what you're looking for is a large building by a lake. It's a big 3-story building called Faith Hall. And we're in Faith Hall, upstairs in room 301. But if you don't get a chance to come live to the presentation in Orlando, then if these lessons about making your life work better, to get past frustration in relationships, maybe frustrations on the job, maybe you're just kind of feeling beat up about what you believe. If you enjoy these lessons, would you do me a favor? Would you tell a friend? Because by your experience of telling other people, hey, this website helped me, these lessons helped me, when you're doing that, you're helping take the message that we teach in Orlando and to be able to spread that to the entire world. And thanks.